Just a quick reminder, grid view will be available once the countdown ends.
Good evening. I am Mayor Donald T. Lopez. I would like to call the Village of Los Ranchos to Albuquerque Board of Trustees regular meeting, a virtual meeting via Zoom to order. The time is 7 p.m. exactly. At this time, I would like to call the roll. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
Trustee Lewis,
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco,
Present.
Trustee Riccabini.
Present.
Let's move on to item 3, approval of the agenda. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
Pablo Rayo, I move approval of the agenda.
I need a second.
Second.
I'm going to call for the question. This is a roll call vote. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
Trustee Lewis,
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco,
Yes.
Trustee Riccabini.
Yes.
Thank you. At this time, we are at item 4, which is public comment. Participants may address the Board of Trustees to comment on issues, problems, or successes on topics that do not appear elsewhere on the agenda. Participants will also be given an opportunity to comment on agenda items for the open session as they come up. Submitted written comments that were sent to the clerk prior to the meeting will now be read. Village Clerk Danielle Cedillo, did we receive any written comments? There
Mayor-
are none.
There are none.
Participants wishing to speak that registered with the clerk prior to the beginning of the meeting will be provided an opportunity to speak within the allotted 3-minute time limit. The person who wants to speak is Mr. Joe Craig. Please identify yourself for the record, state your name and address. Joe Craig, are you on?
Stand by while I enable it.
Okay.
Mr. Craig, are you there?
Yes, I am. Mayor, trustees, thank you.
Yes.
This is Joe Craig, 505 Calle del Pajarito Northwest. I have a couple comments I'd like to make. One of the things, among the many things I'm concerned about as we go through the changes in our economy and society, is our ongoing conversation about our village center. We've had dramatic changes in not only our retail economy because of Amazon and Walmart making big differences in that. And the COVID-19 has made an incredible difference, and I don't know what that means. I've been told for the last 10 years to not look at open space, not to do things for my neighborhood association because we're saving for our village center. I think we really need to have a discussion as to what the village center is, what we're doing. I appreciate your comment at the last meeting, Mayor, that we had a $7 million investment. I think we actually probably have double that because we've added our 4th Street revitalization. It's a major investment for the village, but we cannot forget our village neighborhoods and residents. Second of all, there was a pretty bad sound quality out of the trustees, the BOT working meeting. I think we're going to be in this COVID-19 for quite some time. So I think the village investing in good microphones and good audio would be beneficial, not only for the trustees, but for the rest of the village residents. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, trustees.
You're welcome, Joe. Thanks for your comments. I'm now going to ask, is there anyone else on this call who wishes to speak that did not register prior to the meeting? If so, please state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes. I'm going to wait a few, just momentarily to see if anybody else comes on.
Please raise your hand on the raise your hand button if you would like to speak.
I don't think there's anyone, so let me move to item 5, presentations. There are none. We are now at the consent agenda. There will be no separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. 6A are the minutes of the April 22nd, 2020 special meeting, which is revised. B are the minutes of the May 13th, 2020 regular meeting. I would like to have a motion to approve this part, item 6A and 6B together.
Pablo Rayo, move approval of the consent agenda.
I need a second.
Mayor, I will second it, but I think it's a correction that I
Go
would
ahead.
like to look at.
Yes,
On page 8, on page 3 of 5, under 5, new business.
go ahead.
Line 133, Trustee Riccobeni, you can clarify this for me. It says that when things level off, the village should plan on about a 20% decrease per month in GRT. Is that decrease or increase?
No, that was a,
My understanding was it was an increase then, that we thought it would come back slowly.
after, yeah, you're correct, Trustee Lewis. Thank you very much. Yes. 20% increase per month after things start leveling off. Yes.
Any other corrections? Trustee Rael, do you accept the correction? Trustee Rael, do you accept the correction?
Yes, I do.
Okay, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Being none, I'm going to call for the question. Call for a roll call vote. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
Trustee Lewis,
Yes,
Trustee Pacheco,
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
Thank you. We now move to item 7, departmental reports. You have the departmental reports in front of you, but I have an addendum to the mayor's report with some dramatic financial news that I received yesterday and today. I'm going to read it to you. The Village of Los Ranchos to Albuquerque has been awarded funding in the amount of $72,000 for crack seal and/or striping of 6 designated municipal roads. The village has budgeted to contribute the required 25% local match in the amount of $24,000 for a total cost of $96,000. And this is from the New Mexico Department of Transportation Local Government Funding Awards. The project scope is as follows. The improvement/road/termini. Crack seal and stripe El Pueblo Road from Rio Grande Boulevard to 2nd Street. Crack seal and stripe Osuna/Chavez Road from Rio Grande Boulevard to 2nd Street. Crack seal Garduño Road from 4th Street to Dead End. Stripe Ranchitos Road from Rio Grande Boulevard to the village limits. Stripe Los Ranchos Road from Guadalupe Trail to the village limits. Stripe Green Valley Road from Rio Grande Boulevard to 4th Street. In addition, we got word today from the New Mexico Department of Transportation that we have also received confirmation that phase 2 of the 4th Street for preliminary engineering has been awarded in the amount of $482,687. And we are to receive a grant agreement within the next 2 weeks. I would like to comment that Maria Rinaldi did a lot of the hard work on this. She prepared the grant applications for the village with my approval. And so I want to commend her for great work. What this proves to me is that we have a very strong relationship with the New Mexico Department of Transportation.
That's all good news.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome. So all of the reports are in your packet, and hopefully you've looked at them. We do have our staff on this call. Do any of the trustees have any particular questions about any of the departmental reports?
I do. Yep. Go ahead,
Go
Sandra.
ahead, Trustee Lewis.
Go ahead, Sandra. Sandra, go right ahead.
Okay. I just had a few questions. On your report, Mayor, you, on the last item, where it starts with on June 3rd, and it talks about the strategic doing workshop.
Yes.
And it says aligning our agri-future collaborations. Can you just explain what that means a little bit more?
Well, the AgriFuture project is a collaborative effort between many stakeholders, including the village. New Mexico State helped us out. We have our own staff and a number of farmers and also people who are doing volunteer work at the Agri-Nature Center. So the strategic doing process itself is a collaborative effort. And basically, Trustee Lewis has come to some of our meetings, and we set up 5 tables. I think it might have even been 6. And one of the tables that I sat at was agritourism. And so at the agritourism table, the stakeholders were at that table, basically discussed with each other ways of making sure that agritourism continues to be something very fundamental and very strong for our village. So I think the answer is the whole thing is a collaborative effort. I don't know if that specifically answers your question or not.
It does. I didn't quite understand what, what the collaboration was. So that definitely explains it for me.
And one
Go
comment,
ahead.
Trustee Pacheco, we will be receiving a final report, a very detailed report from New Mexico State. And that report will be provided to all of the governing body and to the residents of the village. And that will give you a much better idea of how the collaboration went and what our goals are for the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And then I just wanted, are we going to go by report or as a group, or do you want me to just put out all my questions right away?
Put out all your questions.
Okay. So now I'm going to the administrator's report. And I am on page 27. And I just have a question with regard to businesses. And Ann, I don't know if you would address this or if this would come from Tiffany's side, but have we seen any openings or closings specifically due to the pandemic? Have we heard about anything in the village?
Anne is having issues right now with her audios. I'm working on.
Let me try to answer that question for her to a point. We do know that Los Poblanos, started off in March and early April with some activity, and then they shut down. But they actually opened over a week ago. They opened the farm shop. They opened their restaurant up to, I think, 50% capacity. I haven't heard, but I'm pretty sure that their hotel rooms are also available, hopefully at 50% capacity. I do know that that shopping center where Flying Star is and Penny Smith's, I think they have all started to open. They were closed for over 2 months. The El Camino restaurant on 4th Street opened last Saturday. They set up a patio outside and I went over there to eat, and they have inside dining also up to 50%. Quite frankly, I think most of your businesses that were closed have reopened. The only exception that I can think of, and maybe somebody else would know better, Wex is still closed. And I don't know when they're going to reopen. I haven't heard. So I'm not sure if anybody else has anything on that. But as far as I know, the businesses that did close for over 2 months have either already opened or actually have plans to open. And others like Dave's Valley Grill, Don Chochi's, and some of these others were open for carryout. And I'm sure they're already available for dining in services. I'm pretty sure of that. Dion's has been open pretty much the whole time, and they have a bang up business going on there, just like Sonic. The only place I haven't visited that I haven't heard anything about is Steel Bender, but I'm pretty sure they're open. I don't know why they wouldn't be.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious if we had heard of anything. And then Tiffany, maybe you can answer this question for me. I'm specifically asking the question as it relates to the village facilities. Are we still receiving requests for rental of any of the village facilities? And are we seeing any kind of uptick for rentals in 2021 at this point? Are we getting any inquiries?
So Trustee Pacheco, Mayor, Trustees, we have gotten a couple inquiries about mostly the parking lot at Hartnett Park because that's a way for people to comply with the public health guidelines and try to gather. But we're not receiving any inquiries about rentals at this point. And I think once the state starts to reopen, we will probably see a pretty quick uptick in people who are interested in gathering again. But in the meantime, it's been pretty quiet, and I think Administrator Simon could also speak to that.
Ann?
You're muted, Ann.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. We have been getting inquiries for the use of the barn specifically, and as Tiffany said, the parking lot. So we expect as we open up and move into phase 2, we're going to see a lot more requests for our facilities.
Great. I guess I wanted to also, and this will go to the public safety report now. Fred, on your citizens issues, there's a couple of questions I have. It shows that there has been some mail theft in Tenon Farms. Has that been an ongoing issue, or is it just something that we've kind of been seeing, you know, during this pandemic, and has it been a regular thing?
Mayor and Trustee Checo, it's a rare thing, to be quite honest with you, but mail theft is a continuous problem for the last several years. They had a couple of mail thefts in Tenon Farms earlier in the year, but they have not had any more that I'm aware of. Actually, the village was a victim of that about 8 months ago. And the sheriff's office recovered some of the stuff that was stolen out of our mailbox.
Right.
So and here in Rio Rancho, I'll tell you, they just hit the mailboxes in my neighborhood last week. But it's not something that is a continuous thing. It's very random when it happens.
Okay. And then can you also explain just a little bit further on the 4th and Ortega notice of tort and kind of what that?
Yes, we've had speeding issues and some issues at that intersection for the last 18 months or so. I had been working with the president of the neighborhood association there, and we finally got some funding to put a permanent speed board up there, along with hopefully going to get some traffic assistance from the middle or mid-region council of governments to do a speed study for us. And we've had a couple of crashes there in the last 6-8 months. But that whole intersection there really needs to be relooked at. And I know that we've talked about that with the mayor and quite at length, and also with Bernalillo County to see what kind of assistance we're going to be able to get from them.
Thank you.
Mayor and Trustee Pacheco, if I could also jump in, we have formally requested that speed study from the Council of Governments, and we have requested meetings with Bernalillo County per Trustee Rael's suggestion.
Great. Thank you for the explanation. I think that was all I had on the departmental reports.
I would like to make a comment while Fred is with us on that particular subject. I've been passing through that intersection more, and what I see as an issue, and they may already know this, is that the cross street of Ortega comes in at a particular angle to 4th Street. And so there is a huge blind spot in the driver's vision that's crossing the street, trying to cross from or turn into the opposite lane, right? So I guess that would be a left turn or a left turn out of either driveway or crossing that road. That's where I think that the biggest problem is coming in. I'm not sure. I'm sure the speeding has a part to do with it, but I don't. If none of you have tried that before, it's a pretty hairy crossing. And that's where I think that probably a lot of the issues are coming from. So to my point, I think there should be some signage in there too, that it's just a horrible intersection. So from that standpoint.
Mayor and Trustee Riccobene, I think that's one of the things we're going to look at, and maybe just some signage that says, congested intersection or something like that. But it's a long-term problem that's been there for a long time. I will tell you, every time we get the speeding complaints, and we put up a speed board there, and actually the average speed there is, 35, 36 miles an hour. The 85th percentile, which we do a lot of traffic stuff on, is like 41. So it's not excessive, but there is speeding there. And of course, with the 4 lanes, I mean, that just adds to that bad intersection. And I think hopefully we can also look at, I'm going to recommend to the mayor and everybody that once we get an on-call engineer, to maybe have them kind of give us a preliminary idea of what they can do.
Perfect. Thank you.
Alan Lewis, you had some comments on the departmental reports?
I had a question for Maria on her report.
Yes.
Is Maria with us?
Yes.
I just wanted her to go into a little more detail on change order number 28. If you could explain that in a little more depth.
Maria, are you on?
Stand by while I promote her.
Okay.
In the meantime, Mayor and Trustees, I might share with you that one thing I neglected to put in my report was a summary of our excellent May 28th budget workshop. I think it was probably the first time we've taken apart the budget in such detail and brought in the trustees to the extent that we did. And I'm really appreciative of each and every one of you for spending the morning with us to help us really think through some hard decisions, especially as we move into this very difficult time with decreased GRT. So thank you.
Thanks, Ann. I think we're still waiting for Maria.
I don't see Maria's name on the list. I see a phone number for
Well, that's
somebody who
her,
called in.
37, it's
537-98982.
that's
Okay.
her.
Maria, you
Good
should be
evening,
able to
everyone.
talk.
Yes, can you hear me all? Can you all hear me?
We can, so
Yes.
Al, go ahead and ask the question again, please.
Hi, Maria.
Hi there.
This is Alan. I just wanted you to, in your report, if you could explain change order number 28 in a little bit more detail.
Certainly. And just for your information, it was actually executed and delivered to DOT day before yesterday. So this extends the contract through July 30th in an effort to get all of the punch list items done, which are significant. And it's the additional, it's based on the additional days for outstanding RFIs, which include some additional safety rail, the cleaning and sealing of the colored concrete, and punch list. So this doesn't change the balance to complete of $176,000. We are actually charging, it's a labor cost for project oversight by the project engineer, Patrick Lujan, and the 1 to 2 person crew needed to do the punch list items and outstanding items. So those are being charged against bid items that we have credits in. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
And additionally, when we do the final change order, Trustee Lewis, at the end of the project, we anticipate additional credits that will lower the final contract balance significantly lower than 176,000. And I'll be able to tell you more about that in the next 7 to 10 days.
Excellent. Thank you, Maria.
Certainly.
Go ahead, Trustee Lewis. Any other comments?
No, not for me.
Okay, do the other trustees, Trustee Rael, do you have any comments on the departmental reports?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, Trustee Riccabini, any more comments?
Just one for Miss Simon. I know we had the, are we to look at the, we're going to get a look at a revised budget as our preliminary budget? Because and then if you would clarify what we would be looking at as a preliminary, and then when are we going to be looking at our final approved budget?
Okay, thank you, Mayor and Trustee Riccabini. You raised such a great question. We really considered the information that we shared and developed together on the 28th as kind of our trial budget. We are given a little reprieve this year from DFA. We do not have to submit anything to the state until the end of July. And that is because every community across the state is really in need of that final GRT disbursement. So we know exactly how much money we have. Case in point today, we found out that we have the $480,000 grant moving forward. That means we don't have to dip into that reserve that we knew was going to come over from the remaining 4th Street money. It's those kinds of bits of information that are really going to inform how we move forward with the budget and how we put it together and what we have room for and what we still need to save for. So to answer your question, we saw the information we shared on the 28th as kind of a trial budget. What we anticipate doing is putting all of those numbers together. As soon as we get the June GRT number, that will tell us a lot. We plan to, Tammy and I will work to put all the numbers in. We will have a very solid draft that we will share with you probably, I would say, the end of June, so that we can discuss it and hopefully vote on it on July 9th. If there is any need for adjustment, we have, almost a full month to make any adjustments. But we anticipate getting that after the next GRT disbursement. And so hopefully by the end of June. Mayor, did you want to talk about your proposal for postponing the?
I would like to ask the trustees if we could have our July 8th meeting on the 22nd of July. My reasons are this. By the 22nd of July, we will have the May gross receipts number. And that will be our final number before the end of the year. We'll also have, which we would have on the 8th of July anyway, the end of year numbers, the June 30th number. I would also like to have us back in Village Hall so we can all be here at a meeting as we would normally be. I think we want to have the table set up, and we'd like to have speakers, additional speakers, so that there are no problems with the audio. And so I'm kind of thinking that if the trustees would like to, we can give you the trial budget the end of June, but vote on the final budget possibly on the 22nd of July. So I'd like for you all to kind of think about that. And maybe at the end of this meeting, you can give me your ideas, or you can give me ideas anytime between now and 1 July, really. We don't have to make that decision immediately, but we do have to make it before the end of June because we do have notice requirements and that sort of thing.
Just a comment, Ann, wonderful job in getting us prepared. And the session was great to be at. I think that it was very well worth the time. And so given that we're going to get a trial budget at the end of June and then kind of tighten it up as soon as we get some more numbers in, Mayor, I'm good with moving that meeting. as long as the other trustees can make the same date. So
Okay,
I'm good and open on that date right now.
okay. Are there any other questions about the departmental reports? If not, we're going to move on to item 8, which is this financial business. It's discussion and approval of the cash report for May of 2020. Treasurer Will Fisher, are you on the line? Kiko, is Will Fisher available?
Stand by.
Tammy, are you on the line?
Mayor, yes, I am. However, Will is on the line. He's an attendee, so Kiko will have to give him access to speak.
Okay, the reason I'm asking for both Will and Tammy, if anybody has a question about the cash report, either one of those individuals should be able to answer that question.
Will, you should be able to talk and enable your video.
Thank you, Kiko. Thank you.
So Will, let me offer some advice very quickly. Do you have the cash report in front of you?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, that very first page, page 33,
Yes, sir.
normally you would read that.
On it. Yes, sir. Thank you. So the cash report for May 31st, 2020. Ending balance, cash balance was $5,220,761.23, which is an increase of $162,977.58 for the month. Year-to-date deficiencies of revenues over expenditures is $274,139.57. 2 items Tammy flagged for unusual is she just reclassed some stuff into different buckets. But that's it. Questions or comments?
Do the trustees have any questions or comments on the cash report? I want to remind the trustees that on May 13th, we went over every page of the cash report. I would rather not do that tonight. I'd just like for the trustees to focus on any particular page or question that you might have, the check register, as we have done in the past. So whoever wants to start can do so. Are you muted, Alan Lewis?
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, on page 68,
Okay.
I had a question regarding property taxes. For the year, does anybody know, do we get a bigger payment in June on property taxes? They seem to be fairly steady and being off $73,000. I was just curious if it's just something that will come in June because of people being able to pay their property taxes the second half in May, or is something different? I mean, that's a fairly consistent number, and I just was curious if anybody knew anything about that.
Tammy, do you know anything about that? You've been here for over a year and a half.
Mayor Trustee Lewis, I'm actually pulling up the June 30th of 2019 cash report right now just to look at that.
We're getting some significant feedback. If you can mute your microphone if you're not talking.
Mayor Trustee Lewis, looking at the June 2019 cash report, it does appear that we will have a big, sorry about that. It appears we will have a big amount coming in June. Last June, we had 72,700 come in.
Thank you, Tammy.
Okay. Any other comments on the cash report? If not, I need a motion to approve the cash report.
I would make a motion to approve the cash report.
I need a second.
I'll second. Pablo Reyes.
Any further discussion? I'm going to call for the question. Call for a roll call vote. Trustee Rael,
Yes.
Trustee Lewis,
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco,
Yes.
Trustee Riccabini.
Yes.
We now move to item 9A, public hearings. 9A is A.ZMA 20-02, a request by Baca's Trees Profit Sharing and Trust for a zone map amendment to change C1 zoning to R2 zoning as allowed by section 9.2.25, parentheses E, parentheses 8, for a property in the C1 zone in the 4th Street corridor and character area. The property is located at 401 Roel Road Northwest and is legally known as a portion of lots 3 and 4, except the westerly 225 feet. Justin Jones addition within projected section 21, Township 11 North, Range 3 East, New Mexico Principal Meridian. Village of Los Ranchos, Bernalillo County, New Mexico. The property contains 3.3 acres more or less. The proposed zone change will be for 1.114 acres more or less. Those speaking will be called upon and will be sworn in individually at their respective time. Miss Winter, if you're on the line, will you please swear in Miss Justice?
Tiffany, can you see me?
I cannot, but I can hear you.
All right, please
We
raise your
can
right
see you
hand.
now.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Miss Justice, please present the request for zone map amendment.
Mayor, trustees, the current lot is one property, and this zone change is going to be for 2 future subdivided lots within this property. The proposed zone change is going to be for about 2 future half-acre lots, part of a subdivision S19-01. With this subdivision, the lots would become dual zoned, zone C1 on the east and R2 on the west. And these lots have been proposed as residential in the S1901 subdivision and in the site development plan, also SDP 19-01. They meet the area requirements of the R2 zone, and both the subdivision and site development plan have been approved. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 7-0 to forward a recommendation of approval of the zone map amendment at their May 12th, 2020 regular meeting. There's currently a special use permit along the south side of what will become Lot 3, which will be removed with filing of the final subdivision plat with Bernalillo County. The properties are in the 4th Street character area, and the surrounding land uses are a combination of C1 and R2. So it's essentially the concept of the zone change has already been reviewed and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission and the Board of Trustees through the subdivision and the site development plan process. This zone map amendment is only for proposed lots 3 and 4, since they'll have residential uses not currently allowed in the C1 zone. So the following guidelines for this zone change and zone map amendment apply. The first, NMSA section 9-21-5 A and B, that it conform with a comprehensive plan and that it is in keeping with the character of the area. So I'll reference the 2035 master plan later, and the property is in the 4th Street character area, which has a combination of residential and commercial uses and zoned properties. So this is in conformance with the character area. The second, there's public interest in changing the zone. No adverse comments were received by the village during the public notice period. The third, the Board of Trustees will not spot zone for the private interest of the owner or applicant. The properties to the west and partially the north and south are zoned R2. This area is a transition between commercial zoning along 4th Street and residential zoning to the west. The fourth, the application for a zone change is warranted. The proposed use for the 2 lots is single family residential, and though the C1 zone allows single family residential uses, They're only allowed at a density of a minimum of 10 dwellings per acre. To build single-family residences at a density that the applicants proposed in their subdivision and site development plan for 1 dwelling per half acre, the lots must change zones. This will also remove the present dual zoning through these lots, which will allow for an easier application of zoning that follows lot lines rather than going partially through the lots. And the support for the zone change is within the 2035 master plan in the overall village goals, village form goal, residential development goal, and economic development goal. The 2035 master plan recognizes the 300-foot guideline for commercial zoning, but it doesn't consider it a fixed value. For dual zoned properties in particular, the master plan encourages encourages properties that are currently dual zoned to be changed into 1 zone. So with that, the department recommends approval of ZMA 20-02, a request for a zone map amendment to change C1 zoning to R2 zoning as allowed by section 9.2.25E8 for property in the C1 zone in the 4th Street corridor and character area with the following findings. The findings that lots 3 and 4 of the subdivision 19-01 are dual zoned C1 and R2 in the 4th Street character area. The surrounding uses and zones are a mix of residential and commercial. The proposed subdivision and site development plan were approved with these lots 3 and 4 zoned as R2, and the zone map amendment is supported by the master plan. Again, no adverse comments were received by the village during the public notice period, and no application to amend the zoning for the property has been filed within the last year. Public notice requirements were also met, and I stand for any questions.
There being no questions, I'm going to now ask if anyone participating wishes to speak on this matter. Is Mr. David Newman on the call?
I don't see Mr. David on the call.
Okay, so that means we don't have to swear Mr. Newman in. Is there anyone participating on this call who is opposed to this? If so, please identify yourself. Apparently not. So at this point, are there any comments from the Board of Trustees?
Mayor?
Yes.
I do have one comment. I just want to make you aware and the other trustees that I've previously voted in favor on this matter in the meeting in 2019 and in my former capacity as a planning and zoning commissioner. And after review of the Governmental Conduct Act and Code of Judicial Conduct, and because I've acted on this same matter, I feel it is only appropriate that I recuse myself from this matter at this time. So I will not be voting.
Thank you, Trustee Pacheco. The floor is now closed for comments. I need a motion to approve.
Pablo Rael, I move approval of zone map amendment 20-02.
I need a second.
Second.
Alan Lewis, okay. Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, Alan. Tom Riccobene, second.
Any discussion at this point? I'm going to call for the question. This will be a roll call vote with Trustee Pacheco abstaining. Trustee Rael.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Riccobene.
Yes.
Okay, we now move to item 10, old business. There is none. Item 11 is announcements. There are none. We move to item 12, which is new business. Notice of awards of request for proposals, RFP 2020-2-1 AE Architectural and Engineering Services, A&E, authorizing the mayor to begin contract negotiation between the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque with the following firms: Bohannon Houston, Decker Parrish Sabatini, MRWM Landscape Architects, Paragon Engineering Group, LLC. Miss Danielle Cedillo Molina, as village clerk, I think you wanted to make at least a statement. Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and trustees. In your packets on pages 96 and 97, you will find a brief synopsis of the request for proposals for architectural and engineering services. As you recall, at the February 19th meeting, Ms. Rinaldi reported to the governing body that the village would be releasing the RFP for these services. As discussed in previous conversations, the village cannot support a full-time engineer. However, having a firm or several firms with the professional ability and expertise required to execute the necessary services for the village prompted the need to request the proposal for architectural and engineering services on an on-call or retainer basis. The village's intent was to select more than one firm, but no more than 5. The RFP was issued on February 24th and closed at the end of the business day on Friday, March 20th. The dates of publication and the method of advertisement are listed on the sheet in your packet. The RFP was also posted on the village website for anyone to review at any time. The village received 6 offers. The firms are also listed on your sheet in alphabetical order. On Thursday, April 30th, the 5-person committee met, evaluated, and scored the firms based on the criteria listed in the RFP. The names of the committee members were not listed to provide anonymity from potential retribution from a firm that was not selected. The rating tabulation sheet is attached and is on page 98 of the packet and is based on the RFP evaluation criteria listed on pages 14 and 15 of the RFP. The committee recommended the following 4 firms: Bohannon Houston, Decker Parrish Sabatini, MRWM Landscape Architects, Paragon Engineering Group, LLC. The village would like to thank all the firms for their time and effort in the preparation of the submitted proposals. The action item before you is requesting your approval to authorize the mayor to begin contract negotiations with the selected firms. And a final note, we followed the state procurement code and we were in accordance with the New Mexico Administrative Code and MAC sections 1.4.1.30 through 1.4.1.43. And with that, I stand for any questions or open the floor to Maria Rinaldi or anyone who has anything further to add.
Do the trustees have any questions or comments on this item? There being none, I need a motion to approve.
Pablo Reyes, approval.
I need a second.
Alan Lewis, I'll second.
Is there any discussion at this time? I'm going to
Just,
call. Go ahead.
A few things. I think that it's all well and good that we're going to do this, and we're approving this as a kind of a go-to contractors. I think it will still. I want to make mention that it still is going to be the mayor's responsibility.
Right.
As well as the administrator's responsibility and anybody else on staff that is going to be putting together the services with them, that we make sure that the firms are at the time capable, able to do it within our timeline, and also are commensurate with the available project costs and such things during that period of time. In other words, we need to keep in mind that we have an open marketplace, and if the I think that things do change over time, and so we must be able to go outside of these contractors if you see it necessary, Mayor.
And I don't disagree with you, Trustee Riccobene. The mayor has some latitude consistent with the procurement code, and I understand where you're coming from, and being a consulting engineer myself for 20 years and also a government official for 30 years in addition to that, I understand this pretty well. I really do. Any further comments from the trustees on this before I call for the roll call the question? Okay, I'm going to call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael.
Did we get a motion already?
Yes, we have a motion and a second.
Okay, yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Riccabini.
Yes.
Thank you. Item B, discussion and approval of the adoption of ordinance number 270, authorizing the issuance of the Village of Los Ranchos to Albuquerque, New Mexico, educational facilities refunding revenue bonds, the Albuquerque Academy Project, Series 2020. Attorney Nan Winter and Attorney Chris Muirhead. Nan, are you there?
I am, Mayor, and I'm
Go ahead.
hoping Chris is going to join us. I'm hoping Kiko's working on that.
Okay,
I'll start, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Muirhead.
thank you.
Mayor, trustees, as you recall, you all approved a resolution authorizing consideration of this ordinance today. And essentially what Albuquerque Academy is doing here is refunding or refinancing a bond issue from 2010. The village authorized an ordinance back in 2010 on this particular transaction, and apparently Albuquerque Academy sees the need to refinance or refund this issue. I understand you've not only done it before with Albuquerque Academy, but when I looked through Mr. Chappell's records, I saw that you've actually done this with Bosque Prep as well. So hopefully—
Sandia Prep. Sandia Prep.
Was it Sandia Prep?
Yes,
Okay.
and Bosque School, actually, both of them.
Okay, I only saw the Bosque, but I really just wanted to make sure that you knew of this transaction, you were familiar with the transaction, and Mayor Lopez and Trustee Rael, it does sound to me, or it does look to me, that you have considered these in the past. We have a floor substitute to consider here this evening. And I think that Danielle should have distributed that to you. The floor substitute will be explained by Mr. Muirhead. Before I turn it over to Mr. Muirhead, I want to make a couple other comments. First of all, this is not a debt of the village. And I think Trustee Rael had a concern about that. And you can see from the ordinance on page 101, the whereas clauses on page 101 of your packet indicate that the Academy will make all payments sufficient to pay this debt service, and further indicate that the Academy is guaranteeing payment on this. Having said that, and having looked at the ordinance, excuse me, I am not a bond counsel. I am not a Red Book bond counsel. And while I made edits to the resolution and I made edits to the ordinance, I also felt compelled to look to the expertise of a Red Book bond counsel. So assisting me in this review, in addition to Mr. Muirhead, was the Sutton Law Firm, in particular, Suzanne Bruckner. So Ms. Bruckner made edits, Mr. Muirhead and I made edits, and as a result of Ms. Bruckner's review and Chris and my further review, you all do have a floor substitute ordinance in front of you as well. One last comment before I turn it over to Mr. Muirhead. The Academy does compensate the village for my review and Ms. Bruckner's review, and obviously they're paying Mr. Muirhead, he's their counsel. But I just wanted to point out, again, reiterating, especially for Trustee Rael, that the village is not responsible for these. This is a transaction you've contemplated in the past with respect to other educational institutions, and my review and Ms. Bruckner's review will be reimbursed to the village by the Academy. So with that, I would open it up for questions first, and then I will turn it over to Mr. Muirhead to answer questions about the ordinance and then about the floor substitute with the ordinance.
This is Pablo. Right. I want to make a comment. I did go over the floor substitute and I did not see any, I didn't have any questions and I thought it was fine.
Okay.
Any other comments from the trustees? If not, let's go to Mr. Muirhead.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, great, great, good. Last time I failed miserably in my technology. So, thank you, Nan, for the summary. That was excellent, and I think it covers a lot of the key points. I do want to reiterate, just because I think it is critical, that every document that you're going to approve as to form tonight, which is the indenture, the sale agreement, the guarantee, the bond purchase agreement, are modeled after the 2010 documents. So the covenants and provisions are going to remain consistent for the village. More importantly, all of those documents have language in there making it very clear that this is 100% an obligation of the Academy. And in addition to the guarantee behind the deal, where they will make a separate guarantee that they will provide for the debt service. And then to reiterate also what Nan said, there are no expenses that the village will incur in this transaction or moving forward. The Academy is responsible for all of that, and very much appreciate both Nan and Suzanne's review. The floor substitute were some excellent comments from them in terms of just providing more specificity as to the delegation, which is permitted under New Mexico law. It's a fairly recent amendment to the statute, which allows the governing body to approve the bond transaction and delegate, in this case, to the mayor or the village treasurer to accept the pricing on the day of pricing. This is particularly important in this day and age because it allows the Academy and their financial advisors to have some flexibility in when they price the bonds. As crazy as it sounds, it can be a day-to-day adventure given market volatility and what is the appropriate time to price the bonds. And so that gives the school tremendous flexibility, which is very valuable. Just broadly, again, to remind the board what this is, as a 501c3, the Academy is eligible to borrow money at a tax-exempt rate, which is more economical. However, the Internal Revenue Code does not provide them the ability to do that directly. So they must rely on a governmental body to do that. And historically, the village has been very generous to do that, and that's what they're seeking to do here. This ordinance approves the bond amount up to $40 million. It sets parameters in terms of the interest rate cannot exceed 6%. The 2010 bonds don't exceed 5%, and this is a refunding, so it's going to be lower. And they anticipate saving upwards of $5+ million in this. I would highlight, again, to point out what I think is the most important thing for the board to think about is Section 10 and 11 of the ordinance, which on Section 10 provides, again, that this is an obligation solely of the Academy, and Section 11 that the Academy provides full indemnification to the village related to this transaction. The only source of revenues to repay this are Academy revenues through the installment sale agreement. There are no village monies involved at all. If you approve this resolution, the Academy then will move forward to price these bonds in early July and then provide those numbers and that pricing information to the mayor for his approval with a closing in later July. Happy to answer any questions. Again, the Academy is very appreciative of the time you're spending on this for the benefit of the school.
Thank you, Mr. Muirhead. Any questions for Mr. Muirhead? Okay, there is a floor substitute for this ordinance. So I will need a motion on the original ordinance and a second, then a motion on the floor substitute, and of course a second. Keep in mind that pursuant to Robert's Rules of Order, if a substitute motion passes, it does away with prior motions. At this time, I need a motion on the original ordinance.
It's Pablo Real. I move approval of the original ordinance.
I need a second.
Alan Lewis, I second.
I need a motion to accept the floor substitute.
Pablo Real. I move approval of floor substitute.
I need a second.
I'll second. Sandra Pacheco.
Any discussion at this time? I'm now going to call for the question, call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Riccobeni.
Yes.
Thank you. Item C, discussion and approval of resolution number 2020-06-01, declaring the 4th Street Revitalization Project corridor from Schulte Road north to Pueblo Solano Road a moratorium street, and proposing amendments to the street excavation ordinance regulating moratorium streets. I would like for Ms. Rinaldi, followed by Attorney Winter, to comment on this before we decide to vote. Ms. Rinaldi.
Mayor Lopez, Board of Trustees, the purpose of this originates in an effort to protect the underground infrastructure within the project area between Schulte and Pueblo Solano. And it has expanded to address any future improvements or construction project areas throughout the village according to the terms as Ms. Winters has described in the ordinance. We have numerous requests almost on a monthly basis for primarily for fiber, underground fiber, which is excavation or bore within the project area. And this is not just an attempt to protect the infrastructure, but to have these companies consider in the short term and long term alternative routes for this infrastructure within the public right of way and also through private property easements. But that's, in a nutshell, it is an attempt to protect the integrity this particular infrastructure in the project area and all improvements and the investments that the village makes in any roadway improvements in the future as well.
Thank you, Ms. Rinaldi. Attorney Winter, do you want to comment on this?
So Maria tasked me with coming up with sort of language that would declare the 4th Street project, what I have now called a moratorium street, but essentially it's a hands-off policy. When I looked at what she was interested in, I assumed we would need a resolution. But then to lend it some teeth, it looks like we are going to need an amendment to the street excavation ordinance. So the bones of the policy are outlined in this resolution. However, I have also prepared a complete red line and amendments to the street excavation ordinance. It does some minor cleanup, but it embodies the moratorium street concept, not only as to 4th Street, but as to any other street in which there has been substantial cleanup or excavation in the last 5 years. So next month in July, you should have in front of you an amendment to the street excavation ordinance, and I have already done a red line that shows you what changes we're proposing. So I stand for questions on the bones of the resolution.
Any questions from trustees for Ms. Rinaldi or Attorney Winter?
I have a question. This is Alan. So when you talk about, fiber and things like that, is it possible that this could also hurt the village and that people won't come in and put in the latest technology because it's a moratorium street?
You want to answer that, Maria, or do you want Ms. Winter to try to answer that?
Well, let me just say something really quickly. So there is a clause, and Nan can expand upon this, of course, that would allow, if the project is necessary for the improvement of the community, an exception can be made. Where in that exception, the encouragement is that it only occurs in the 4th Street corridor in particular, but again, this would apply to any improvements for a 5-year period. But an exception can be made allowing for boring and excavation within the asphalt travel lanes. That is the, for lack of a better term, that is the area, the project that has the least amount of conflict underground. And that is also where utilities were moved from the east and west side of the corridor into the drive lanes, such as the gas company and the utility authority water and sewer lines. So those are already under there, and we understand that improvements or repairs will have to be made there. That's why they in the asphalt lane, and that, Trustee, would be an option if it is a critical project for the community.
Ms. Winter, do you want to add any more to that?
Yeah, just real quickly, we start out with the proposition that you can't touch this street pavement. You can't touch this 60-foot width of improvement, period, end of story. However, anyone asking to dig up in that 60-foot width on 4th Street will be denied a permit. And the first line, or the first recourse, or the first alternative is that you will be required to move your fiber or your infrastructure to the next street over. All right, that's number one. Number two, however, you can request a waiver of this, but you have to go to the mayor and you have to have good cause. And you can also, of course, there's going to be emergencies. If you request the waiver, the mayor is only authorized to grant the waiver within the asphalt travel lanes, and absolutely not within the curb, the gutter, the shoulder area, just to protect that whole gravel-filled infiltration trench system, to protect the sidewalk and the promenade and all that new landscaping. So it is not a 100% absolute no way. Emergencies are contemplated, reroutes to the next adjoining streets are contemplated, and as a last ditch resort, mayor can grant a waiver in the asphalt lane. But the minute you start touching that infiltration trench, you're biting off more than you can chew, probably.
Thank you, Ms. Winter.
Thank you. I have one more question on page 113, the last page. Bond for any excavations made in part of a moratorium street. There's an extra zero, I guess, after the decimal point. That $20,000 seemed awfully low to me. Is that a normal number? It's something I don't know about, but it seemed like a low number.
That's the same question I had, Alan. They put 20 million instead of 20,000, and I think 20,000 is very low for repairs if we have to make any of that are not completed.
Maria or Ms. Winter, do you want to comment on that?
Mayor, I'll get to that. Your street excavation currently requires a $5,000 excavation bond.
Okay.
So I suggested to Maria that it needed to be a lot higher than $5,000, and together we came up with $20,000.
Okay.
Mayor, your expertise and maybe Maria's expertise, you could get together and pick another number. Right now, the edits to the ordinance do include this $20,000. So, coming up with the right number, I would leave that to you and Maria, and we can make the change in the ordinance for next month.
Is that satisfactory?
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay, any other comments?
Mayor, I do have a question.
Sure.
I'm just curious about the time frame. Is 5 years a typical amount of time on a moratorium? And then once that 5 years up, what happens? I mean, is it just gone and it's kind of open for, for people to come in and do what they need to do? What typically happens? I'm not real familiar with this process.
So Ms. Rinaldi or Nan Winter, do you want to try to address that?
Mayor, I'll take that one too. So when Maria first approached me with this concept, the first thing I did was look to other jurisdictions, and these moratorium street concepts aren't 100% common. You might be the first jurisdiction that actually has something called a moratorium street ordinance, but I found similar ordinances and moratorium street concepts in San Francisco, in Miami, in Texas. And the concept originates from, not because you're damaging newly placed infrastructure. But what I was finding was that a lot of these, urban areas are developing these concepts because the minute you cut the pavement, you erode the long-term life of that pavement. So it was more than just destroying something that you just spent a lot of money on. There's also some compensation in this concept for essentially eroding the value or the long-term life of this project. The minute you cut into it, water seeps in from different directions and it starts to erode the pavement. And that's an issue that I actually litigated on behalf of Bernalillo County a couple years ago. At any rate, to answer the trustee's question, 5 years does seem to be about right. They run anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And then after that, yes, you do revert to the old, what's embodied in your current excavation ordinance. One last comment. While I was looking to make edits to the excavation ordinance, I realized it probably needs a bit of a facelift. So in the next 3 to 5 years, you probably want to revisit your excavation ordinance. The dollar values in there are low. Some of the language is older. I don't know when you adopted it, and I knew that at one point, but I don't know right now. But it might need a little bit of a facelift, and at that point in time, I would suggest you might want to sort of think about what your policy might be for streets that are older than 5 years.
Thank you.
Does that answer your
May I-
question?
Mayor, may I comment as well?
Yes.
And the idea behind giving us this 5 years, first of all, is we watch the wear and of the project, and if development occurs and we have curb cuts and things like that, we can actually see what the impacts specifically are in the forestry corridor, but also in the revision in the next few years of that ordinance. Nan and I did speak about, fees, costs associated with excavation permits that are commensurate to what we will see is the cost of repair to those systems as those things occur over the next few years. So that would be part of that facelift, if you will.
Any further comments? I need a motion to approve resolution number 2020-06-01.
I'll make the motion to approve resolution number 2020-06-01.
I need a second.
I'll second this, Tom.
Any discussion? Call for the question. Call for the roll call vote. Trustee Rael.
Yes.
Trustee Lewis.
Yes.
Trustee Pacheco.
Yes.
Trustee Riccabini.
Yes.
Thank you. Let's move to item 13, trustee informal discussion. For some reason, my iPad is losing power very rapidly, so I may fall off this call here in about 5 minutes. So, but let's
Mr.
go
Mayor,
around.
I would
Trustee
suggest,
Rael,
Mr. Mayor, I would suggest that you plug in your iPad if you're able to do it.
it's plugged in for, I don't know what's going on. Something's happening. Trustee Rael.
Don't have anything.
Okay, trustee Lewis.
It's something we've talked about before, and it was a very big topic in the master plan. And I would like to see us really take a hard look at housing options in the village. I
Okay.
think we need to address that, and I think we need to get in front of that issue.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Trustee Pacheco.
I just had and it's coincidence, but I did also have a comment on the master plan and kind of what I heard through discussions with regard to ditches. During our conversations, we found that there were some real issues with properties that are being sold at the end of a ditch. And I'm just wondering if anybody's kind of keeping their eyes on that, or not wondering, but I'm hoping that our staff is keeping their eyes open for those kind of situations that might occur, so we don't lose our ditches.
I agree with you completely. It's something that I've been watching for quite some time. I'll make sure that happens.
Thank you.
Anything else, Trustee Pacheco?
Nope, that's it.
Trustee Riccabini.
Just a comment. Thank you, Mayor, and thank your very capable staff. and thank the rest of the trustees for working so hard on our budgets and whatnot. I just feel like we're in a good spot.
We are. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. It is 8:15 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.